Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We know you can't have a country without a border. We all agree. We know you can't have a border being $36 trillion in debt and taking on another trillion every 100 days. The question is, can you be a country and fund forever wars? And I know this is where the room's going to split a little, and I'm okay with that. I'm not a pacifist. I've been in plenty of fistfights there in the neighborhood. I believe in having a strong military, but we cannot continue to defend everybody else's borders more than we defend our own.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on this Training Tuesday and we're talking winning Minnesota for Americans and beyond. America is at a breaking point. Our national debt has exploded past $38.6 trillion now and keeps climbing by billions every single day. We're still bleeding treasure into endless foreign wars while fighting to completely secure our border against the narco-terrorist cartels and foreign adversaries, not to mention continued trickle of illegals. In Minnesota especially, we're seeing the fallout of the open border policies. They're massive fraud schemes, draining taxpayer dollars, ICE hamstringed from doing its job, immigration policies that seem to prioritize everybody except American citizens, and real questions about resettlement programs and daycare programs and those kind of things that put foreign interest ahead of our own people. Well, enough is enough. It's time to permanently secure the border, stop the fraud, end the forever wars, and put American citizens first in every single policy, every single decision, every dollar we spend. You just watched a man who gets it completely, Royce White, standing tall and asking the question every patriot is thinking. And I'll quote it again. The question is, can you be a country and fund forever wars? Close quote. The answer is a resounding no. We cannot keep shipping our wealth overseas while our cities struggle, our veterans wait for care and commit suicide, and our families bear the burden. This is the bold leadership we need. Somebody who will not compromise, that will not back down, and will fight like hell to take our country back. Well, my guest today is exactly that fighter. Minnesota U.S. Senate candidate Royce White. Royce is a champion professional basketball player and an MMA fighter. Born in 1991, he was named Minnesota Mr. Basketball. He started at Iowa State University. My grandsons are going to love that. And was selected 16th overall by the Houston Rockets in the 2012 NBA draft. Mr. White's also active in advocacy issues, but he firmly entered the political arena by running for office first in 2024, where he won the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in Minnesota. And now he's running again in 2026 with courage and determination to win for us. Royce, welcome to the show, sir. It's been a long time coming. I've wanted to get you on the first time you ran for Senate, since we share running for U.S. Senate races as outsiders and on a lot of the same policies. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Well, I appreciate
Thank you for a great intro. That intro was amazing. Thank you. I got to clip that. I got to use that.
Yeah, clip it. When I post this thing after the post-production, it'll be downloadable too on X. So just take it all.
Thank you.
If you want, because I support your run. I support you doing it again too. I did that once a year apart. It's hard, but it's worth doing, especially if you have an opportunity to win. And you won the nomination last time, sir. So let's take this head on. Over $38.6 trillion in debt. Now, the clip I showed was from your 2024 race. We were only at $36 trillion in debt. All right. How did we get here, and what role does the Fed play in that?
Well, I'd say we got here by reckless leadership, reckless, feckless, corrupt leaders. The inflection point was, well, the start of it's 1913 and the inception of the Fed in and of itself, just the way that fractional reserve banking works, not only here but all around the world. And that sort of led us up to this modern monetary theory, which is the ultimate pipe dream of Karl Marx. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the inflection point for us in recent history is the 2009 housing collapse and financial crisis, where we bailed out the bad guys. We essentially said that business is more important than the betterment of the American people, than the working class, which is the ultimate, corruption and betrayal of everything that is American. I mean, if your American working class and middle class can't, reap the benefits of their hard-earned dollars, of the sweat equity they put into this economy and this country, then we've lost all sense of direction. But not only did we bail out the bad guys, we continue to bail them out to the tune of what is now a $38 trillion debt, and it's indicative of a crisis. I say, we live in a reverse vassal empire. In a vassal state, a vassal empire, historically, the little kingdom, the little village pays the bigger kingdom for military protection. And, if you ever have a problem with a neighboring village or tribe or whatever the case may be, you can call on us for military aid and we'll come and help. We have a reverse vassal empire. We pay everybody else to protect them. And people always ask me, well, why would we do that? Who would go down to the most dangerous nightclub or bar in their respective city or town and pay to be a bouncer, pay the establishment? Well, you would only do that if you're moving drugs or some other type of vested interest out the back door, and you wanted to keep a close eye on the enterprise. And that's what we've done. I mean, we literally pay to protect everybody else. Why do we do it? We do it so that the government can extract the wealth from the working class and middle class and make us debt and wage slaves, and that's exactly what's happened up until now.
Yeah, it's both sad and infuriating, man. The one of the things that's going on right now is Tim Burchett and some great folks like Sean Ryan and Legend on X have gotten this bill passed because we were actually paying the Taliban for something like $40 million a week.
Horrifying.
Yeah,
horrifying,
it is.
To say the least. Yeah,
it is horrifying. It's almost as if we're paying them not to attack us anymore.
Or we're paying them to, or we're paying them to be the boogeyman in our own nefarious narrative to further steal more money from the American people. And we'll be going back into Afghanistan there in the future at some point in time if the watchmen aren't vigilant and continue to sound the alarm on the scam. It's a scam of biblical proportion. This is where I say that a lot of conservatives have given over to a cultural philosophy of Marxism, maybe without even understanding it. It's because if you socialize the risk of your society, you effectively are a socialist society. Doesn't matter how much. The fundamental of our economic and monetary policy is a socialist, a proto-socialist and communist economic system. And so, again, if you socialize the risk, you're a communist society. If you socialize, say this, if you socialize your defense, if you trade your freedom for the security, false security, by the way, the false security of a socialist economic system, you end up paying your enemies and telling all of your countrymen and women that they have to give you more of their money in order to be safe. It's brazen is what it is. It's part of the reason why I ran. So once you understand it, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, it's like the endless war policy. First time I ran was in 2013, 2014 for U.S. Senate. And we were talking about ending that policy of constantly keeping U.S. forces in combat zones. And the pushback against that from the Republican Party establishment was tremendous, and it continues to be that today. I mean, I thought that President Trump would be able to cut the funding off to Ukraine as much as possible and then get that war stopped by basically eliminating their ability over there to continue the conflict and continue to get their people killed, and hundreds of thousands of them. Even though Russia shows no signs of backing down or losing, they don't show any signs of being able to roll across Europe either, like the establishment people want to talk about. But they also show no signs of stopping because they just outnumber and have out-resourced the Ukrainians. But the president is still trying to get that to come to a peaceful end, and it's almost as if he has almost no control over the funding flow, which surprises me a little bit.
Does it? Doesn't surprise me one bit. I think there are two different political realities in this country. There's the political reality that we see on Fox News and CNN, even now extended to some of the alternative podcasting and alternative media sources out there in our country who cover these politics. And then there's how politics really work behind closed doors. And you know that from your time there, inside the apparatus. But all of the deals that get done, all of the deals that get cut, and the little nuances and details of how to get anything done in this country, especially for a president who is so outside of the norm or the status quo. I don't think your average American citizen has any real understanding of the immense pressure President Trump is under to stay alive, to stay with, to color within the lines to where he could get anything done. He's probably being threatened by some of his own people. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. Or maybe not a direct threat, but maybe a firm quid pro quo, like, hey, you can do this if you want, but these are going to be the likely consequences. So, it's I give President Trump some grace still because I understand, even just from reading some of the unredacted, highly classified documents about how some of these intelligence agencies have their teeth so deep into these administrations or into these politicians' inner circles. He's fighting against a lot. He should be able to cut the funding off. And I think a lot of the messaging, like, what he said there in Davos and what Marco Rubio said the other day in Germany, and a lot of the hemispheric strategy as a principle, the deal with Greenland, even Cuba, you could say all of it is moving in the right direction. I don't think it moves nearly as fast as people would want it to, or maybe as we need it to.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm still convinced that he'll end the Ukraine war. But it has to be. But he's being forced into this corner to where he can't do much with the funding of it to stop that, which would cut it off immediately. So he's got to go more of the negotiated route.
He could, but he'd have to. Yeah. He could, but he'd have to go. He'd have to go tyrannical. He'd have to. He'd have to do something that the broad majority of average American citizens would see as extreme and overreaching for the federal government or the executive branch, and that is a needle that we're going to have to thread at some point anyway. I think it's going to play a role in the constitutional crisis on the horizon, especially around these elections and their security, and what we're going to do, executive order or whatever else, to secure the elections in 2026. But we're headed for a constitutional crisis, even with the judiciary in many ways, right? We saw a little brief skirmish, quasi-civil war here in Minnesota with the governor and mayor saying, hey, we're not going to comply with immigration enforcement. And the next one is going to be the elections and securing the elections. Ultimately, when we get to foreign affairs and foreign policy and the use of military, the cutting off of funding, a lot of Americans just don't have the stomach for what we need to do now. And that's sad and unfortunate, but true. And I continue to pray that we find the stomach to save this country.
Yeah, like you, I continue. The president has my full support, and I like the Western Hemisphere defense being the number one priority in the national security strategy, because all of it all of those activities flow into and inside of the United States, and and that tumor, what I call that infection or tumor, is poking out through places like Minnesota, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. I'm talking with Royce White, candidate for U.S. Senate in Minnesota 2026. You need to support him because there's nobody else out there that's going to be able to get this job done for him. I'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
If your starting premise is we should be the only country in the world, the entire world, with no border, it is a non-starter. Okay, so let's push those people to the side. The people on the left who say there's no such thing as illegal on stolen land, we're pushing you off to the side. You're batshit crazy, ridiculous, political ideologues who aren't interested in solutions. You're interested in using every single political controversy as a proxy for your ulterior motives and agenda. That's who you are. You get to go in the bucket way over there. Let's talk to the people who actually believe that deportations of illegal immigrants should take place. They just have a problem with the manner and method which they are carried out. Okay. If part of your problem with the method is that ICE has to target communities with a heavy concentration of brown people, which is usually or are usually also communities with heavy concentrations of other minorities or colored people, or let's say, just to put it frankly, black people, you should have a problem with your Democrat politicians that made your black and brown communities sanctuary cities and invited all of these people to come and live there. Your problem is with them. It's not with ICE. It's not with President Trump. It's not with the Republican Party. Your problem is with the Democrat politicians, the Democrat Party that made this issue a proxy for the entire political divide and invited illegal immigrants to come live in your neighborhood.
Living in your neighborhood, folks. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and my guest today is that man, Royce White, a U.S. Senate candidate in Minnesota here in 2026. He's the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate in 2024 from the very same state. He lives it. He grew up in Minnesota. His life is all about Minnesota and how and where he grew up and the family he has and who he grew up with. And he's put everything into it, everything. And he's sacrificing again by putting himself on the line to run for this Republican nomination one more time in the midst of an explosion of what I call a low-level insurgency is what we've been witnessing. It's kind of tamped down a little bit since Tom Homan came in over the past few weeks, but it's an insurgency in my mind based on what we're seeing with the organization, the funding, and the communications and command and control amongst these activists. Royce, welcome back. You had a phrase that not one step back when talking about this issue of illegals in this country. Why do you have that position? You have to be being called a racist and a bigot like I get when I say we got to deport every single one of them. They're all criminals, even for just being here illegally.
Yo, amen to that. I mean, it's fairly simple. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. If you don't have a country, then you don't have citizenship. If you don't have citizenship, you don't have rights. You don't have human rights. You don't have women's rights. You don't have gay rights. You don't have civil rights. You don't have basic rights. So having a border and having a country, having laws concretized in the form of a nation state is the foundation of human rights or the enforcement privilege privilege of human rights. We believe them to be inalienable, but our secular humanists, left-leaning Democrat opponents would say that there is no creator. So your rights are granted to you from the government. Even if you want to take that approach, the privilege of rights can only be enforced if you actually have a country to begin with. So, I mean, I think the premise is so basic, I don't even understand what the argument is. I do understand what the argument is. The immigration argument has become a proxy battle for all the other failed identity politics. First it was BLM, then it was the feminist Me Too movement, then they tried to throw all their chips into the transgender mania, and when all of those failed or lost momentum, the last stop is there's no such thing as illegal and stolen land, and America is the problem. In fact, we had a University of Minnesota professor here, Native American woman, University of Minnesota professor, publicly say that she hopes everybody supports the dismantling of the United States of America. She wants to dismantle the United States of America and the heteropatriarchy. So straight men who believe in having a country are the enemy. Quiet part out loud.
Yeah, and that dives right into the Christian foundation of the country, of the government, what our culture stands for. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. The founding culture of the United States is one that we've tried to carry forward and instill in people that came here as immigrants. And those that love the country embrace that and assimilate into that culture. But what we're seeing as this viral infection on the thinking on the left in this country is what that professor said. We want to dismantle the United States of America because its government is oppressive. It's white supremacist in some cases. Right. You're probably called a white supremacist, like Larry Elder was when he ran for governor in California. They're a little more shy to do it to me. I'm a little bit more hostile, and I have a tendency to get physical when things go to that place. So, yeah, and you know what? I don't blame
Larry's a nice man. Larry is a kind and decent-hearted man. Yeah. Me not so much. I'm not so nice. I'm not so nice. So.
But it's shocking to hear those kind of things come out of someone's mouth that's part of the system that's supposed to be a leader and set an example and is teaching our young people hopefully how to think, but really it's more about indoctrination of what to think these days in every level of public school, which that university is a public school. Yes. But the shock value of it is that not you and me, but people that might vote for us get reeled back by that, and they don't know what to do. What do you tell them when you're out on the road and you're talking to folks?
I tell them to hold the line. I've been saying in this campaign season, we're not far right, we're not extreme right, we're not the fringe right, we're not alt right, we're not ultra right fascists or racist or Nazis. We're just right. We're just right, and we have to hold that line and hold it firm with no fear, no equivocation. Hold the principle, move people toward the principle, because we've lost the principle, we've lost the plot, and we've lost the principle. We have to have a border. It shouldn't even be a debate. The fact that it is shows you how ridiculous our opponents are. And now the only thing left to do is to clarify things on our own end. And that's the real, anybody who says we should dismantle the United States should be disqualified from the outset. Unfortunately, the mainstream media has bought into a similar idea, which is why at the Grammys and the Oscars and all these other Hollywood award shows, they celebrate, a one world policy, but none of the illegal immigrants come to live in their homes or neighborhoods. So we know they're ridiculous. The real problem, as you alluded to earlier, with conservatives who push back against President Trump's policy, some of his policies, the real problem is we have our own identity politics on the right. And the number one identity politic on the right is Israel. 1,000% with no equivocations. Israel is the identity politics of the right.
We saw that every once in a while. We see it comes out in the clear. I think Ted Cruz said some things not too long ago.
And respectfully, respectfully, it's not even so much about Israel or Jewish people or even our strategic relationship It's more about, same way as on the left, fundamentally, the identity politics are put ahead of the nation. Well, part of our Christian identity in this country is that, and for many, Israel's politics are more important than America's. And it's not conjecture. It's not my opinion. It's a fact, at least statistically speaking. It's a fact that with the Satanists on our doorstep, even worse, in our homes, in our bedrooms, in our children's bedrooms, it would appear from certain recent revelations, with the Satanists in our children's bedrooms, 33 million Christians still didn't cast a vote in the 2024 election. So I hear that and I go, well, there seems to be a serious investment, emotional, spiritual investment in the politics of Israel, yet we're not even voting in our own elections. Now, the Christian community could come back to me, the Protestants could come back to me, because we are a Protestant nation. Even though I'm Catholic, this nation is overwhelmingly Protestant. My Protestant brothers and sisters could come back to me and say, well, how do you know we're not voting? True. Maybe Christians are voting and their votes are being not counted. Maybe they're being miscounted, or maybe they're actually not voting. Either way, the referendum in 2024, especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk's brutal assassination, is on Christians. And if Christians aren't going to step up this go-around, if we're not going to step up this, if it continues to be that Israel's political reality or political circumstance is more important than our own, we deserve to die under communist pedophiles.
What? So what you're saying, if I understand it correctly, is that some Christians, many Christians, put Israel's political ideology ahead of our own?
It's not even a question. If you stand an Israeli flag next to an American flag, if you place them on the same level, I'm talking symbolically.
Okay.
When Glenn Beck goes on to his show and asks for dual citizenship, there shouldn't even be any dual citizenship. And it's not about Israel. That's with any country. There shouldn't even be dual citizenship. But again, our Christian, and I was here in Minnesota, and God bless Living Word Church. I think it's a great institution, and Reverend Mac Hammond has done a great job to steward the gospel and things all across the world. They have a great ministry. But, he's one of the leaders in the, Israel and America United for Christ. And I was at their place the other day, and Michelle Bachmann came to speak. And I like Michelle Bachmann. I think she's a patriot. Yeah. But I think she also has one of these conflations with priority. And she came to speak, and the first thing she went to speak about on stage was Israel. And I'm just thinking to myself, I go, okay, I'm not saying what's going on in the Middle East isn't important or of consequence, but the first thing anybody should be speaking about when they step onto a stage to discuss politics in America is America.
Yeah.
That's not too much to ask. That's not too much to ask, I don't think.
It's not. And quite honestly, I am opposed to, and have opposed for quite some time, overwhelming military aid to various countries, especially those that hate us, which we do. I have opposed giveaways to countries. I think Israel has a right to defend itself, and we should support that right. But I also don't think that we should go to war on behalf of Israel. We should only go to war if it's in the interests of the United States of America. I think President Trump has walked that line very well so far. But I share your concern. I hear what you're saying, and a lot of people are like that. We should be focused on Americans first. That's why the president's getting pushed back for his national security strategy. I think Secretary Rubio, like you said, did a great job on that over the week over in Munich, where even our leftist politicians were there trying to stir up stuff. And our allies need to understand that they're not our vassals. We're not their vassals. They've got to shoulder their own responsibilities in defense of themselves.
Well, yeah, that was supposed to be the said goal of the post-World War II democratic liberal order, right? Is that we were going to take freedom and democracy all around the world by peace through strength and make countries self-determining.
Exactly.
Show me a country that's self-determining out there. Show me a country that doesn't need our protection. Show me a country that doesn't need us to ensure its sovereignty. And we thought that was strategic. There are many military experts that thought that was the greatest Trojan horse of strategic military position and economic vitality in some regards, and how the dollar, it's like the dollar is everywhere because our military bases are everywhere. I mean, it's it's all the national interest. The military itself is the interest. Wherever we are protecting people, we're trading United States dollars, and I'm fine with dollars being our number one export. If it weren't for the rise of a communist totalitarian regime that seems to be out engineering us at every turn, in that polarity, we cannot have our number one export be our U.S. dollar. Whether we're running into a brick wall here, and I think everybody knows it. I think President Trump's doing his best, and I actually think it's a Trojan horse against Israel in some respects, because we all know if America collapses, which we are on the way towards, we have a constitutional crisis in the judiciary. If the leftists take back control, Israel's funding is going to cease completely, and it won't be out of a affectation for America or patriotism. It'll be a part of that same identity politics panoply that they have going in their sick head. So if America collapses, Israel won't be far behind in by my estimation. So I don't even see how it's pro-Israel to go the way we're going at this point.
That's a great point. And like Dwight Eisenhower said, he was the first commander of NATO as a Supreme Allied Commander Europe under NATO. He said, if we're still here 10 years from now, then the alliance has failed, because we should have been home after the rebuild so folks could defend themselves. Well, we got to take another break, Royce. When we come back, I want to talk about Michelle, your opponent in this primary, because the rhinos are at it again, just like they always are. We'll be right back with Royce White.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you.
President Donald Trump is making a special announcement, and all signs point to the obvious. He's announcing he's going to run for president in 2024. In the last week, however, a growing number of people once on his side are now saying maybe not this time. I spoke to two of those voices, in Michelle Tafoya and Amy Koch. Michelle Tafoya became a household name from the sideline, calling games, until early this year when she got off the sidelines and into politics. She had a brief stint with Republican Kendall Qualls' campaign for Minnesota governor, and then 5 days ago, she wrote an open letter to Donald Trump on her Substack account saying, please don't run for president again.
I think people know that if Trump does throw his hat in the ring, as he's expected to do, that chaos is back. And we've had enough. I mean, people are exhausted.
Why is Tafoya going so far as to say, don't run, Trump?
There are so many things going on that people want some leadership without that kind of baggage, without that kind of tumult. I hear it a lot from people I know who voted for Trump, who just don't want to see him back now. They want something a little closer to normal. I think people want sanity. I think people want to breathe normally again. I think people see the writing on the wall.
And this just isn't Tafoya. 3 days ago on Fox, a tweet about calls for Trump to delay his announcement. The Hill published a story saying the party is worried that Trump announcing will backfire. Then the Trump-backed Lieutenant Governor of Virginia came out and said Trump in 2024 is a liability to the Republican mission.
He won in 16. He was new. He was fresh.
Back stateside, longtime Republican Amy Koch had this to say of Trump's seemingly inevitable announcement to run.
I bet you 80% of Republicans think, don't do this.
And her reason? He's a reason they are losing, she thinks.
I think what Republicans have to look deep at is we basically had 4 elections with Trump on the ballot. And don't kid yourself, he was a big part of this ballot, and he's 1 for 4.
So agree with the sentiments of these Republicans or not, but the call is out there now, no matter what the former president decides to do.
Look, I don't know what he's going to announce. I don't know what happens, but I do think now that people know his playbook and they know his game plan, they're going to be much more prepared to deal with him. Will he fizzle out? Not quietly. We know that.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and there's a little training for you, ladies and gentlemen. Right there, that's Michelle Tafoya. She has entered this race for U.S. Senate for the Republican nomination in Minnesota against our guest today, Royce White. And Royce is my guest. As I said, welcome back, Royce. Let's talk about Tafoya's candidacy, as if that video clip doesn't just speak for itself. I got lucky and lucked out. I don't get invited to anything, and somebody invited me to the 2022 announcement at Mar-a-Lago. It was the only time I've ever been there up to that point. And I was thrilled to be there, but there were all in the 6 front rows. There were a lot of Republican National Committee people, and I couldn't tell whether they were excited or just nonplussed. And I think Michelle represents the nonplussed people. Why on earth does she think she can win in Minnesota?
Oh, well, that's an easy answer. The Minnesota is afflicted with cultural Minnesota-nice sentiment, and it's deep within our political culture as well. There's a thing in Minnesota called Jante culture. People can look this up. It's an old sort of cultural social philosophy from old Scandinavia, not the better of our Scandinavian heritage. My grandmother's Norwegian, by the way. One of my grandmothers was first-generation immigrant from Norway, but the Jante culture was something like a repudiation of individualism for the utility of collectivism during harsh winters and dangerous tribal warfare. It's like, don't be different. Don't think you're better than the group. Don't say anything controversial, even if it's right. In the Jante culture, they would forego the moral and ethical considerations of a given idea to sustain the status quo, the false sense of security of a status quo. And that's who Michelle Tafoya represents. But they think she can win because they've polled enough people, I would assume, here in Minnesota to believe that the greater Minnesota culture is amenable to this sort of lie and scam and cowardice.
Mm-hmm. Are they passing her off as a pro-MAGA individual?
Absolutely. 1,000. It's even worse. And I said, first of all, the fact that they would even pretend that she supports President Trump or the MAGA or America First movement is absurd. But then my other opponent, Adam Schwarzy, who you don't even know, he's another guy, 20 years in the Navy, and he was the co-chair on Nikki Haley's presidential campaign in 2024. On the record saying he thought Nikki Haley would have been a good president. I mean, so they're everywhere. I'm surrounded. I'm in the belly of the beast. I'm in hell here in Minnesota on the Republican side. But the real offense that I take to it is, again, after Charlie Kirk's brutal assassination, this country was supposed to rally around faith and our founding principles. And the NRSC, its band of running dogs, Mitch McConnell's band of running dogs, and that's who Steve Daines and Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham are, would see to it at the cultural epicenter of American politics to push a pro-choice. The MAGA stuff isn't even the issue. The fact that they would push openly pro-choice candidate in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination and a Christian referendum says exactly who we're dealing with on our side. They're in the wire. Let me reiterate. They are inside the wire. President Trump, sir.
Yeah, I pulled a graphic off of, I think it was your X account. Mr. Producer, put up pick one for us as we're talking here. And you can see the faces of the individuals that Royce is talking about. And Tafoya's right there. It says, with the microphone, says, "I'll do it." And they're all yelling pro-choice in the background. That is unbelievable, especially after the Dobbs decision. You could pull it down, Mr. Producer. Especially after the Dobbs decision that eliminated Roe versus Wade. It's incredible.
Unprecedented. I mean, we knew that the Rhino establishment was bad, and we could tell that they're slow walking the SAVE Act. Now, I think with the SAVE Act, we do have to remove the digital ID. So there's some things that need to be cleaned up in the SAVE Act, but I don't think the apprehension to pass the SAVE Act for the Republican Senate has anything to do with its digital ID. I'm just going to say that. But, you know, they're slow walking the SAVE Act. I mean, look at the tariff situation. Another prime example of people who are traitors to this country. You know, you want to side with the Canadians not getting extra tax while they give, our North American hemisphere to our national mortal enemy, the CCP. They cozy up with the CCP. These people are traitors. And they recruited Michelle. That's my point. They recruited her. They hand-selected her. The first day she launched her campaign, Tim Scott endorsed her, and the NRSC has not stopped promoting her since.
And Tim Scott's the chair right now of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. That's the NRSC that runs the establishment money, folks. So here they have the 2024 nominee. Let's just clarify this for the people out there, Royce. We have the 2024 winning Republican nominee that with the experience needed to win a political campaign at this level, already proven, and the NRSC chooses to run a pro-choice liberal woman for the Republican nomination. After all that we've been through, it makes absolutely no sense. I think that the people that say the establishment Republicans just like to lose may be onto something.
Yeah, they're the Washington Generals. No, it's not that it does make perfect sense when you actually think about it. It doesn't make sense to us, but it makes sense for them. They get paid handsomely to be the controlled opposition. People got to remember, the conservatives have had the House and the Senate in this country just as many times as the liberals over the last 30 years, and they've served the same interest, the same broader interest. This is what we have come to describe as the American Uniparty, the permanent political class. And, you know, they're brave. Now they're getting brazen. And if President Trump, with all due respect, Mr. President, I don't know how the endorsements work and Susie Wiles and the entire crew. That's not my business. That's not my line of country. My line of country is the great state, 32nd state of the Union, Minnesota, and fighting for this state to be saved from the insanity. However, if President Trump does not recognize quick that we are approaching a point of no return, and on the other side of 2026's midterms, if we do not start to clean house of some of these rhino people, we are going to lose this country for a very long time. Now, the American spirit longs for freedom and it longs for the truth, so we will revolt eventually if any of us are still left alive. But we're going to lose this country for a very long time. And Michelle Tafoya, and I'm not saying this because it's my race. Michelle Tafoya being recruited by the NRSC is a herald of the duplicitousness and disloyalty and treason of this country from within the Republican Party.
Why do you think they think that she could handle something like dismantling this somewhere between $9 and $18 billion of fraud just amongst the Somali refugee community there? Because if they're obviously afraid of you and what you stand for, which is clearly Americans first in every decision, every dollar, and those kind of things, even more so than I am. I'll admit it. They're afraid of you, but we have to get a handle on some of these issues that are coming out of Minnesota, the Somali fraud being really at the highest top of that list, to be quite honest with you, right? And then the illegals after that, or right there parallel with it. Why do they think she could handle that? Minnesota Nice is not going to cut it.
They don't think she can handle it. That's the whole point. The point is, if you're a sideline reporter in the NFL, the woke NFL for 30 plus years, you don't have that type of career unless you say absolutely nothing controversial. That's how you have a 30-year career in professional sports in this day and age. And they don't think that, first of all, the state fraud is going to be a governor issue, not a U.S. senator issue. So that'll be more Mike Lindell's, department when he wins. And I'm fully in support of Mike Lindell being the candidate. And they're running two establishment Republicans against him as well, Kendall Qualls, Lisa DeMuth. Same money, same people who are backing Michelle Tafoya. But that'll be more the governor's department. Why they're recruiting her is because they need as many people as possible to slow walk President Trump's agenda in the United States Senate in 2026. And they fear if President Trump does bring down the hammer with the elections and we get clean elections, some of these states that used to be swing states won't be swing states. And the last thing they want is ultra MAGA America First candidates like me showing up to Washington, D.C. with a mop and a broom and a bucket.
Yeah, and men and women of faith, too, Christian faith, whether
Amen.
Protestant or Catholic, doesn't matter, in my opinion.
Amen.
Men and women of Christian faith are putting themselves out there like you, Royce. And we got to take our last break. When we come back, I want to give you a chance to talk about your faith. We had America suffered a loss today. I'll mention him when we come back in, and we'll see a little clip about faith. My guess is Royce White. He needs to be the winner of the 2026 U.S. Senate GOP primary in Minnesota. Go vote for him.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
That's Little Royce. We call him Little Royce, but he's probably going to be taller than me here shortly. He's my oldest son. Look, everybody doesn't have to believe in Christ. My faith in Scripture tells me that many people will doubt, and that's fine. That's part of the journey. In the end, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. But what we're not going to do is hide. We're done hiding. We're done taking a back step. I'm not afraid. My son's not afraid, and that's what faith is really all about.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and that's right. Christ is King, and we are not going to hide. I don't care what denomination you're from. We are going to talk about it. We're going to try to live it out the best we can as individuals in our lives, that Christ is King, and that eventually we don't have to make you do something, not like the Islamists where they try to take over your government and then behead you if you won't pay the jizya tax or convert. We don't have to be like that because we know that Jesus Christ is King. He's Lord and Savior. He was sent here for you. You can make your own decision, and he gives you the freedom to do that. But eventually, every knee will bow. My guest today is Royce White, U.S. Senate candidate for the 2026 GOP nomination in Minnesota. He was the 2024 nominee. He's an experienced candidate. He understands what message he's on. He understands how to deliver that message, and he has an understanding that the electorate in Minnesota, if reached, will vote for his candidacy, and he has the faith to do that. Royce, we lost an American today. The Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away at age 84, and I don't think politically there's anything I ever agreed with Reverend Jackson on, but I did get to protect him on Secret Service detail when I was detached to the Secret Service in his presidential run, the big one, and I saw him deliver the Democratic Convention speech that he gave that year, and I think he was like probably the last link, and one of our friends on the right said this on X. I'll paraphrase him. He's the last link to the Christian faith in the Democrat Party from a realistic perspective and a public perspective, and we have to acknowledge that and respect him for continuing that throughout his life, no matter what else. That's my opinion. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about your faith, why it's important, and why it's important that we act on our faith in this political arena that we find ourselves in now.
Well, yeah, my thoughts and prayers are with Reverend Jesse Jackson's family, and I would hope that in our movement, on our side of the aisle, we honor people in their death, because if you're a Christian, death is unnatural, right? It's not a natural occurrence. We were never intended to die. You know, our fallen nature is, makes it so that our mortality is something we have to confront. And, you know, I didn't agree with much of what Reverend Jesse Jackson believed in either, but when a man dies, we should respect that. Our opponents don't feel the same way, and I guess that's a good segue to why we have to act out our faith in the political arena, because it's consequential, and you have to accept that forever, whatever time we're here on this earth until we meet our judgment, we do have to deal with the reality of what happens here on earth. And, you know, Jesus in Scripture calls us to be the salt of the earth. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. He calls us to be watchmen on the tower, that if we see something that's happening and we don't speak up, we are equally culpable in his eyes. And, you know, I come from a culturally Democrat black community, very old one here in St. Paul, the Rondo community, historic black community. And it's been completely brainwashed and ransacked and gutted of its prosperity and its sovereignty and its understanding of civic duty and the beauty of American freedom. And much of that coincided a sharp decline in Christianity. So I'm not trying to give a political answer, but it is political. Yeah. And you know, I woke up one day at 27 after a career in basketball and not paying close enough attention, I guess, to realize that my Catholic community that I grew up in politically really wasn't so religious at all. In fact, they openly mock and reject Christianity. I was shocked. And I really just woke up one day and found, you know, it was when George Floyd died and all of these protests were taking place. I led a protest, a peaceful protest to the front door of the Federal Reserve. I'm probably one of the only United States Senate candidates in history to lead a protest of 10,000 people to the front door of the Fed, which the mainstream media has buried. But we made people bow their heads and pray during that demonstration. And I was shocked afterward to find out how many people were just outright offended by Christianity, by prayer. And then I started to notice it all over. Another thing that if you once you see it, it can't be unseen. So, you know, Christ is king, and if we think we can have a secular humanist society, a secular humanist political culture that's going to hold any morality or ethics, we've already proven that's not possible. The entire post-World War II Democrat liberal order was based upon secular humanism, and it hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it not only hasn't worked, I mean, I think it's over 70 million unborn babies we've killed, you know, since Roe v. Wade was enacted. And that death continues, folks, as much as I would love to be able to say that we eliminated it when Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, and rightly so. I can't say that we have eliminated this murdering of little unborn babies. The folks that need our help the most are those little human beings. You know, as God says, he who cares for the least of these is going to see the kingdom of heaven. And don't quote me on that. I'm paraphrasing what I know as a truth, not a scripture, folks, because I am not a scripture quoter. I just try to speak the truth as I've learned it in my Christian life growing up. And one of the things that's always bothered me, and I spent 30 plus years in the military, so there's a few things we didn't really talk about in the military back then. And that number one was we don't do partisan politics in the United States Armed Forces. And a lot of people would teach folks, keep your religion out of it too. But you know what? I think that was a wrong approach, to be honest with you. And I regret not speaking up as a Christian more often than I did during my Air Force career. And I've tried to make up for that in my public career, my political life that I have out here today, and advise people to show their faith and their Christianity and live it out. And I think that's what you're doing. That's what I did when I ran for U.S. Senate myself, and continue to do to this day. And it's a culture worth saving, right? I mean, that's the American foundational culture, right?
Well, I mean, it's funny. We face an opponent that's not even starting from a place of logic or sanity or shared reality. So it's hard to even speak to some of these ideas that they have. Is a book of bad ideas. Well, our book has a lot of good ideas. Mm-hmm. Our book is the foundation upon which all the prosperity and their privilege to protest stem from. This country and its prosperity and its overall wealth stems from a Christian foundation and fundamental ideas about God, about life, about human beings, about rights, about the role of government. They wouldn't have the privilege to protest like we see there in China. They wouldn't have the privilege to protest like they do if it wasn't for the Christian ethic or fabric of this country. And I just ask all of them the same way I ask them about, if you want to dismantle the United States, where are you going to live? Where are you going if this country falls? Same thing I ask about Christianity. What is the basis of your ethics? What is the basis of your idea of good and evil if it doesn't stem from, the Hebrew Bible?
That's a great question. What kind of response are you getting these days? Because I see, especially since Charlie Kirk's assassination, his public murder and martyrdom, in my opinion, he was a martyr. Since then, I saw this little blip of a revival happening, not a revival in the church-going sense, going to a ceremony, a preaching session, but revival in the hearts of men and women in this country, especially Christians that may not be practicing, no matter what their denomination is, as much as they know they ought to be. Are you getting a positive response when you talk to folks about faith and its role in our society and the culture more these days than maybe in your first run?
I think even from my run back in 2022, when I ran for Congress, I started off my convention speech to be endorsed by the Republican Party and CD5 by asking, "Are we the party of God?" And the room was split right down the middle. In a Republican convention endorsing convention. So there was a big shift from there to 2024. And I think the shift has continued in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. However, ultimately, I do have grave concern for our Christian community in that we don't recognize this as our moment to step up. Yeah. People ask me all the time, well, how can you appeal to the moderates? How can you appeal to the independents? I'm not trying to. I want to appeal to the 32 million Christians in this country who didn't cast a ballot, if that is the case, and tell them you need to get involved in this process so our beliefs and values can be reflected in our political leadership. And if you don't, or if you do and you feel that you've been cheated, then that should be the groundswell of the greatest protest in this nation history, that Christians are fed up with being second fiddle, being stomped all over, and being treated like stepchildren in this great nation.
I mean, we just saw another trans killer at the hockey game in Rhode Island, and that follows a whole series of trans active shooters and mass killings. One in a church, right in a church having services where the kids from the school there were in service in the chapel, and the shooter comes in, and it's another trans guy.
In Minneapolis, that was here.
In Minneapolis, exactly right. So we have to, and a lot of these are focused at Christians and Christianity and everything, and we've got to encourage folks to rise up and get to the polls, no matter what you think about the security of the election. Everybody's working on it. You got Mike Lindell and Royce White running for statewide offices in Minnesota, of all places, that understand that problem, folks. Well, Royce, Thank you so much for being with us today. I will tell everybody we're going to be in the after show on the X audio space that runs simultaneously with this show for a little bit. So you're welcome to join us there. Tell folks where they can find a link to give you a donation and to help you as volunteers.
RoyceWhite.us. That's our Senate campaign website. You can follow me on all social media. Podcast, Please Call Me Crazy, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on YouTube and Rumble.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. God bless you. Keep up the fight. We support you 100%. Tomorrow, the Blaze is Steve Baker will be with me, and we're talking about his recent article on the guy that was arrested as the January 6th pipe bomber. This story keeps getting more and more fuzzy when it ought to be getting clearer, and it's way past time for that to be happening. I look forward to interviewing Steve tomorrow. We'll see you then on Whistleblower Wednesday.
We have a big announcement, folks, something we've been waiting on for several months, and it's now here. It's called Bella Melt. You were on it for just 1 week when you lost 3 pounds. So in the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?